Hello, hello. Is anybody home? All right, you're already a lot of you in. Yay. We're on the air. Very cool. All right. So I'm going to look at the chat. As you come in, please type your name in and where you're from and what you most want to get out of this. What prompted you to come here tonight and spend time on a beautiful summer evening and what you want to get out of this? It's a hot topic. I understand totally. So it looks like Jean in Austin, Felipe from New England. Great to be here. Hello from Jenny, Laura from Wisconsin, Richard Smithy, Guamas, Sonora, Mexico. Nice. We're always international. I love that. Let's see, Laura from Wisconsin, Jenny, who else? Houston, Amy from Houston, Kat, whoops, it goes by too fast, from Alberta, Leslie from Alabama, George, Nancy from Florida, Candy from Southern California, Jennifer from San Rafael. So I'm going to go ahead and start it in the moment. I'm going to put a little sticky note message here so I can get you guys to let me know, number one, if you're a practitioner or not a practitioner and what you most want to get out of this. So I'm going to do this in a message at the top. That'll be up at the top for a little bit. So introduce yourself, and tell me where from, if practitioner, what kind, and what you most want to get out of tonight. All right. We've already got like almost 300 of you here. That's great. I'm going to make sure I didn't make spelling errors, which I already did. Let's see. I'm not a good typist. I'm a good speller, really. I really am. Introduce yourself. Okay. I just try to type too fast and I'm not good at it. So my words run together. I'm very excited about what I've put together for you tonight. I had a lot of fun, adding to my already huge repertoire of understanding and knowledge, some just new tidbits and facts that I really would like you guys to get and understand. So I'm going to post that. Monterey, California, practitioner naturopath, Celia. Great. Welcome. Healing, wellness, and self-care from Boston. Oh my God, it goes by too fast. Yay. Will you guys, my team, please put these in the little file you have for me so I can look at this at the end and really get to know who's here and address people then. Because I can't. Janine, yeah. Barb from RN from Traverse City. Christine from Connecticut. Kat, not a practitioner, but have medical training for myself to help me lose weight in a healthy way. Great. We get a lot of practitioners, people who are not practitioners, who come and join our practitioner trainings, come to our Shine event or join our nutritional endocrinology program or insulin resistance program or one. And they decide they do want to become a practitioner because, they joined it because they wanted to help themselves and their family. But what they really realize is there's a greater world out there that needs this kind of help. And we're on the forefront of getting there. So I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and get started. And super excited. Thank you so much for spending time here. I really appreciate it because what it says to me is that it's more than just me out there that wants to change this healthcare system, and that, yes, you want to help yourself, but that's the part of changing the healthcare system is empowerment, right? Creating empowerment for each individual. And that's what we as health practitioners need to do. But I'll get into that as I go along. I'm very passionate about this subject. So I'm going to go ahead and start a backup recording. And when that's ready to go, I will begin. So hello, everybody, and welcome to the benefits and risks of ketogenic diet in the management of chronic metabolic disorders. And I'm Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo, and I really am excited to have you here tonight. And I want to jump in and talk to you about something near and dear to my heart. Yes, ketogenic diets, and I love what ketogenic diets can do when they're done right. And I don't like what they do when they're not done right. But also there's more to this. There's more to it because we are here with a mission. You may not even realize it yet, but I think we have all been chosen, if we can understand that word, or we have chosen a path that is helping us to change the world and is helping us to create a world where health and peace and love and communication is the norm rather than the exception. So I'm super excited to be on this journey, and I just keep being called to continue this and to broaden and expand so that we reach the masses with this. But I heard this quote probably about a week ago, and it really stuck with me. It was, there are moments you'll always remember and those you'll never forget. And when I first heard that, I'm like, what's the difference? And then as I started to get into thinking about it, I thought, well, I'll always remember my wedding day and the joy of having all my family members around me and my friends, and of being wedded to the love of my life, who, by the way, we just celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary. So that's a day I'll always remember. I'll always remember all the little details of it. There are other times in my life that I'll never forget. And I'll never forget the look on Scott's face as he walked in the room to give me some news I wasn't expecting, and I just didn't want to hear at that time. And the news, so let me just backtrack a little. I had come home from the clinic. I was an intern. I came home from the clinic early because it was my 35th birthday and I wanted to celebrate. And we had plans to go and have a nice dinner together and just celebrate. And that never happened. And as I wanted to get home early so I can exercise before dinner. I'm a big avid exerciser. And as I was on the exercise bike and I'm, pushing away, I hear Scott come in the door, and I heard the click of the garage. And I thought, oh, wow, how sweet. He came home early so we can have more time together. And I heard his steps coming towards the bedroom, and I was getting more excited. And as he walked into the room and looked across at me and waved me to come over, I knew something was dreadfully wrong. And it was at that moment that he told me that my mother had a massive heart attack that day, and she didn't survive. And I can feel it in my body now as I speak about it. I will never forget the feeling in my body. I will never forget how I went numb and cold, and I got scared, and I got upset, and I got lonely, and I got angry. All at the same time. It was this flood of emotions that came in all at the same time. She was 56 years old. Why did she have a heart attack and nobody even knew she had a heart problem? Why did this happen? Why couldn't somebody have done some tests or counseled her in such a way that said, your heart is at risk, here's what you need to do? But nobody did. And that was back in the 1980s. Yeah, it was back in the 1980s. No, 90s. It was early 90s. It was 1991. And, there was some talk of other alternatives. There was talk of dealing with metabolic disorders and heart disease and cancer through nutrition, but it wasn't as well known as it is right now. And I was just graduating. I was just on the verge of starting my career because I wanted to do this because of the results I'd gotten with myself. And I was angry. I was angry because they didn't know. As I look back now over the years, 27, how many years later? Is it 28 years later? Yeah, 28 years later, I know things that had my mom's doctor known back then could have saved her life. I know of advanced testing that could have been done. I know of some basic testing that could have been done to pinpoint some of the imbalances. I know that there are genetic tendencies that I've since uncovered now that we are in the era of testing the genome. But they didn't know that. They didn't caution her about her cigarette smoking. They didn't caution her about her awful diet. You know what they cautioned her about? They cautioned her to stay out of the sun because she had developed a basal cell carcinoma a few years back. That was the extent of lifestyle changes that they gave my mother. She didn't die and would never have died from a basal cell carcinoma, yet she was fanatical about slathering on the sunscreen. but nobody talked to her about her diet, and nobody talked to her about her smoking. And as a result, she died. She died of a sudden heart attack. And I don't want that for any of you. I certainly don't want you to lose family members as a result. And 2 years later, we lost my father the same way. And so you could see why I'm passionate about this. You could see why I want change to happen, and I want it to happen quickly. You could see why I want not just me to be out there and, a small group of us out there teaching people about diet and lifestyle, but all of us, all of you listening who are practitioners, it's part of your destiny as well. We have the power to change this system. And what we need and what we might be lacking is the knowledge of all the details of how things work. And that's what I provide. And that's what I'm here to help you with. The knowledge of how to do this, how to test people, how to counsel people, but also the knowledge of how to get that message out there. As much as I'm a student of biochemistry and nutrition and herbology, I'm a study of marketing and business. Because why? Not because I want to, sell widgets or create a supplement line and sell that. I have no interest in that. What I have an interest is in selling ideas, selling people on ideas and paradigm shifts, selling people on the importance of changing this in our lifetime, not just for our kids and their grandchildren. I'd love my grandchildren to be born into a world where health is the norm, where every single doctor knows, every single practitioner, doctor has a health coach in their office if they don't want to do it themselves, knows that there is more. There's more than what they were taught in medical school. And I'm passionate about that. And I'm so excited to have you guys here tonight because you're passionate. Whether you're a health coach, a naturopath, an MD, I've seen a lot of you, a nurse on here tonight, or you're here because you care about your family members or yourself and you want to be empowered. The future is empowered self-care. The future is not the latest and the greatest chemotherapeutic agent or tool or drug or widget to help people to fix the things that are broken. Yeah, we need some of that stuff. Yeah, we need crisis care. We need that intervention. But who feels good if at the end of the day, all you could do is say you kept people alive, you postponed their death? What if you could say at the end of the day, wow, I made a difference in that person's life. Wow, that person is better for having known me. Wow, I helped open and illuminate a path for this person that is leading them to joy and pleasure. That's what I want for you. And that's what I want for the world. Because you know what? This is my limited view here, but I'm going to share it. I think that healthy, happy people don't fight. Therefore, when we can help people to feel empowered, not helpless, and to feel healthy, we're going to have a peaceful planet. It's not going to come from everybody meeting in a room and deciding, not to do nuclear weapons or to do nuclear weapons. It comes as a much more basic thing. It comes from a place of everybody feeling good about themselves and good about the people they run into and sharing a common bond of love and health. Love and health. My signatures at the end of my emails have varied over the years. Love and health. Love, health, and joy. Love, health, peace, and joy. It's all what everybody wants. So let's get started and let's get changing this healthier system. And if you agree, say amen. I agree. I want to be part of this. Just type it into the chat that you want to see this as the future. You want to know that every time you go to a restaurant, your kids go to a restaurant, that they are just loaded with healthy choices. That when you go out in the world, nobody's smoking and offering you a beer and calling you silly if you don't take it. No, they're all conscious of health. Who wants that? Yep. A whole bunch of people are saying yes, I'm in. Yay. Okay, so we're going to get started. I have a really nice presentation for you. I have the information, but I also have the inspiration and I also want to empower you. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, you should see my screen now. There are moments you'll always remember, and those you'll never forget. And I want to create memorable moments for you and for your family. So let's just jump right in. So We're here to talk about the impact of ketogenic diets on metabolic disorders. Some of you came to my webinar about 2 weeks ago, and we talked about intermittent fasting and how that affects metabolic disorders. So I just want to do a quick review of what metabolic disorders actually are. And that's going to help us to frame ourselves and make sure we're all on the same page. Metabolic disorders, what are they? Metabolic disorders are, let's make sure I can hit this button. It's things that are out of balance in the body, either too much or too little of a significant chemical, a significant reaction, something that we need to stay healthy. It could be a missing enzyme or a vitamin. And we know that vitamins are cofactors for enzymes, and enzymes catalyze reactions. And without the cofactors, those enzymes work much more slowly, which means pathways go much more slowly. So detox pathways, healing pathways, ATP generating pathways, whatever they may be. Abnormal chemical reactions that hinder metabolic processes. What could that be? Well, there's just a process that's not happening properly. Maybe it is in the liver where detox is happening. Maybe it is in the gut. A disease in the liver, pancreas, endocrine organs, endocrine glands, or other organs that control metabolic processes. And all of these do. We know that. Nutritional deficiencies, and we know that those are rampant when we look at what people are eating. Nutritional excesses as well, or imbalances is also there. And inborn errors of metabolism, genetics, genetic pathways that are broken. A real good example of that is phenylketonuria. So those of you may understand what that is an inability of the body because of a broken metabolic pathway from genetics to actually metabolize an amino acid called phenylalanine. Thank you. And that really is an important process, and it can cause some serious effects. I remember when I was in school and learning about phenylketonuria, and my instructor, who was a PhD in nutrition, and he meant well, but he was a little bit off in his approach to looking at things. He said, yeah, and when you have a kid with phenylketonuria, the best foods for them, get this, you're going to die, soft drinks and candy. I just threw my hands up and said, huh? And I threw my head on the desk. I can't believe he said that. I cannot believe he said that. He says, well, yeah, because they don't have protein in them and they don't have to worry about getting too much phenylalanine. Sad, but that was what they were teaching. And they're not teaching much better now. So when there's a metabolic disorder, when there's a metabolic problem in a pathway, deficiencies, excesses, broken pathways, we have many of the disorders that, or diseases that are basically our big killers: diabetes, cancer, heart disease, brain imbalances like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and neurodegeneration, MS, things like that, and a lot more. So we really need to be focused on how do we approach metabolic disorders. It's really, really important. So early signs of metabolic disorders can be things that are like considered nuisance symptoms. Considered symptoms that if you went to the doctor and said, I have these symptoms, they go, oh yeah, honey, take some Prozac, get some sleep, drink some more coffee. Belly fat, that extra fat around the middle that just keeps growing and growing. Sometimes it's grabbable fat, and sometimes it's visceral fat, which is in around the organs. Sometimes it's both. Most times it's both. And the visceral fat, which surrounds the organs, is the more dangerous because it's highly metabolically active and produces a lot of inflammatory chemicals. Also low energy, especially after eating a meal. Like this is considered like, oh, come on. You came to the doctor to tell me you have a low energy, but quite frankly, 80% of doctor visits are related to low energy. Yet most of the time they're not really taken seriously. Oh, maybe there's anemia. Here, take some iron. That's about the approach to it. Maybe you have a thyroid problem. Let's test. But even then, the testing isn't appropriate to really catch some of the subtle imbalances early on. That hunger that you get even after you've had a full meal, that's a sign of a metabolic disorder. Your body's not processing the sugar that it just ate or the fuel that it just ate and putting it into the cells. And then that mid-afternoon energy slump that everybody thinks is normal. They'll say to me things like, oh yeah, you know how it's normal to get tired in the middle of the afternoon? I'm like, no, I don't have that. I may have used to have that when I was unhealthy, but I don't have that anymore. And then difficulty focusing. And we see that a lot in kids that are diagnosed with ADD, but so many adults have that too. Just can't stay focused and get the work done. And then that cranky and irritable if you miss a meal. And that's normal if you're 2 months old. because you just can't sustain yourself for very long. But we really, really need to be looking at these. These are the early signs and symptoms, but in reality, they're just the tip of the iceberg for the more advanced type of things that are killing people: cancer, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, etc., autoimmune diseases. Okay, we just can't ignore those things. They are the hallmark. Had my parents, doctors, considered the fact that my parents didn't have diseases, they had imbalances in their body that showed up as these minor symptoms. My mom had skin cancers removed. She had gallbladder disease, but you know what? She had 9 kids, and they figured, the female fat fertile in 40, she was ripe for it, right? No, she had arthritis. I remember her having arthritis, and I look back on that. She never even made it to be old. She was 56, but she had arthritis, and I remember her complaining about her arthritis for years. I don't know what type, because she's not around to ask. I suspect it was rheumatoid arthritis. I suspect that, right? Just because of the way she lived her life. And it was sad. And my dad had horrific gas. His digestion was awful. Nobody ever took that seriously. He had minor high blood pressure. He had glaucoma. But nobody took those as signs, hallmark signs, that those were tip of the iceberg, that other things were going on. And I suspect they both had insulin resistance and prediabetes, but because nobody was testing for it, and still they're missing, folks. They didn't catch it. So this is a metabolic disorders timeline. It may start as simple as your body's producing too much insulin, and rightly so, but it's doing it in response to the dietary and the stress. And then it goes to some people, even early on, from the time they're kids and teens, will notice that they get really cranky and irritable if they miss a meal, right? That's reactive hypoglycemia. Some people get it, some people don't. The stage that is ripe for being addressed, and you guys have the ability to do this because the regular Western trained MDs are not, pre-insulin resistance. That's that period before the fasting blood sugar goes above 100, before we start to get the actual lipid changes that are considered in the dangerous range. That's when we can catch it. And there's very simple processes. And I know a bunch of you have been through our insulin resistance training and learned these. We're going to go into detail on how to do that when we do our Shine event in the fall. And then insulin resistance, and that's medically diagnosable, easy to diagnose. Basically, you fasting glucose on 3 or more occasions above 100, that's considered. That's between 100 and 120, 125. It's considered insulin resistance. And here's how doctors handle it. A lot of them, not all, will say, "Oh, wow, your glucose is getting a little high. Oh, doctor, what should I do? Oh, well, I'll just try to lose weight and come back in 6 months and we'll check you. And if you're diabetic, we'll give you medication." That is not a joke. That is actually what I've heard people say their doctors told them. And fortunately, they found me, they did our programs, and they reversed it. And you too can guide people to reverse their insulin resistance, to reverse their diabetes, to reverse their heart disease, and more. Then there's metabolic syndrome, which is insulin resistance with high triglycerides, high cholesterol, low HDLs, high LDLs, and possibly high blood pressure. Then we progress to the actual diseases. So at this point, we're not really at disease, we're at imbalance. I mean, there's not like the physical manifestations, like, there's a clot in the heart. But then we can move from there into cardiovascular disease and cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's. This is an issue that needs to be addressed. And here's the thing. All of this happens over the course of 30 or more years. So you can help people to understand where they're at 30 years before they develop cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, and help them to reverse it, because you will know how to get the early signs. And what causes all this? Well, everybody wants to blame genes, right? Oh, my mom had arthritis, so I'm going to get arthritis. My mom had gallbladder disease. My mom died of a heart attack. My grandmother had diabetes. Those are all real for me, right? My aunt had lung cancer, and my other aunt had bladder cancer, and my other aunt had emphysema, and my uncle died of a stroke. Oh, so it's in my genes. I'm going to get those things too. No, the genes are going to express based on what? The lifestyle, the choices. Every choice matters, guys. Every single choice that you make and that your clients make. Every choice matters. And so it comes from inadequate nutrition. I mean, this is so predominant. I travel a lot. So I go into airports and I look at restaurants and I go to conferences, and even at conferences where people are, so-called informed, they still do things that are messing with their nutrition. Stress, well, 24/7, right? Tigers running on your tail 24/7. The news tries to keep people stressed. It sells, right? Lack of exercise. That's a huge one. People sit and they're busy. You work all day. The stress leads to the lack of exercise, right? Because you've worked all day, you got to get up. So the easiest thing is to sit on the couch. And then sleep is an epidemic. So when you can learn how to help people with these things, you can help them to prevent going down the path of metabolic disorders, and you can reverse them if they're already there. So as health practitioners, we are obligated to learn how to optimize metabolic pathways. We need to know how to optimize these pathways, guys, in order to help people progress on their healing journey. Because if you're stumped when somebody says, I have this or that, or you look at labs and you don't know how to read them, because if you send them back to their MD, they know one of two things: disease or not disease. We got to get them in balance, and we got to avoid put them in a box based on what their symptoms are, label the box, give them a diagnosis, and then throw some medication at them. That in a nutshell is the Western practice. Not for everyone. There are some good ones out there, but this is what they're taught. And I ran this slide by a colleague of mine who's a medical doctor. I said, is this kind of what you learned in medical school? She goes, oh yeah, that's it. That's it. We've got to be part of changing that, because when they just slap some drugs on to suppress symptoms, it's like if we got up in the middle of the night because the smoke detector was bothering us and interrupting our sleep and pulled the battery out, the house then burns down. And in medical words or medical situation, that house burning down is ending up like this. Fortunately for my parents, they never ended up in this situation. They died before they did. But my sister, Kathy, my younger sister, Kathy, 6 years younger than me, she ended up in a situation like that, in the hospital, hooked up to tubes, withering away. She was diagnosed with lymphoma, 43 years old. She had warning signs. She was fatigued. She was obese. Whenever we went to her house, she never told me she had gut issues, but there was all the over-the-counter medications, Tums, etc., on her counter. Her refrigerator was devoid of fresh food. The fast food was there. She became obese. She became sedentary. Her immune system broke down. And by the time anybody diagnosed her, she had full-blown lymphoma. Nobody thought to do some testing or to counsel her before it got there. Say, hey, Kathy, look, this is where you're leading to, right? That's not the way our medical system works, and that's what we have to change. We don't want our people to end up here. We need to start looking at health as a continuum, not a diseased or not diseased situation, which is how medicine is practiced. You're either diseased, you have a disease, you have a diagnosis, or you're fine, right? There's nothing in between. But in fact, disease, right? The stage before people get to disease is usually an imbalance. And we can detect those imbalances. And when we're moving people from disease to well, we can move them from disease up to, okay, so we help them. They are out of balance. We can restore them to balance. But if they don't want to stay there, I don't want to just be balanced. It's kind of like, I want to be like optimal. I don't want to just be, average. I want to be optimal. I want to be vibrant. I want to be alive, and I want to be unstoppable. So that's what I want to teach you guys, is how to help people to move from wherever they are in this continuum. First of all, to get them heading in the right direction. Because if they're going down, even if they're vibrant and their habits are such that they're creating imbalances in their body, we need to step in and change it. So tonight, I want to make sure I got a lot to share with you. I want to make sure that to get the most out of this, that you turn off your cell phones, turn off Facebook. If you want to invite your friends before you do that, send them to drritamarie.com/RealScore Ketogenics. Don't ask me what that means. That's what my web person who created the form for me said it to. RealScore Ketogenics. I want you to stay focused. I want you to open your heart and your mind please take notes. If you don't have pen and paper or an iPad or something to take notes on, have it handy, because I'm going to share a lot of stuff. Some of it you may know, some of it you may not. And keep an open mind, because I may share some stuff that you know and you're going, oh, I know this already. But I guarantee you don't know everything I'm going to say tonight. And if you do, come join my team. I'd love to have you as a partner. And then decide what your next action is going to be. What are you going to do to move you into the direction of being that practitioner, that family member that is empowered to help people make change? So this is what we're going to cover. I'll go through this list pretty quickly, and then we'll revisit this from time to time throughout, just to make sure I cover everything I promised. We're going to talk about ketogenic diets in the management of metabolic diseases and more, why they're so popular, what ketosis is, how do we measure ketones, what are the benefits of ketogenic diets when done properly, what's the science of metabolic improvements that occur in ketosis. You got some good stuff here. I really enjoyed researching that and finding some new stuff and new backgrounds and mechanisms for stuff I'd already known. The dark side of keto, how keto diets can create imbalance when they're done incorrectly, and 3 strategies you can do and teach people right away to avoid the dangerous complications of keto. What's involved and what's included in a keto diet, and then how to determine the best diet for you and your clients to balance their hormones, protect against the ravages of metabolic disorders, and prevent chronic degenerative disease. So who's ready? Does this sound good? You ready? Ready to go? Type in the chat if you're ready. Disclaimer. This is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional. What I'm sharing is not medical advice. And when you share the stuff with your clients and patients, unless you are, an MD or a nurse practitioner, or somebody who's in the face of someone who has the ability to diagnose, you need to tell them that this is not medical advice. So if you are under the care of a doctor, always recommend that your clients go and work with the doctor if they're on medication, because the stuff that we teach works, and suddenly they don't need as much medication. And instead of having hypertension, they suddenly have hypotension, and you got to be prepared for that. So, ready. So I wish I could take everything in my head and pass it on, but instead I'm doing these seminars, I do training programs, I do live events. It's the long way, I understand, but until they create one of those USB devices that just jump into a person's head and you can stick it in your own head, we're going to do it this way. One of the mutations maybe down few generations is we'll realize that this is an important thing to do, and people will be born with little USB ports, hopefully under the hair, not out there in the middle of the forehead like that. So what's the fast path to ketosis? Well, we're going to talk about what ketosis is and all that. But on my last webinar, I talked about fasting. And fasting gets you into ketosis very quickly. Personally, I get into ketosis, really serious ketosis, by the end of the first day, because I do fasting on a regular basis. Other folks, it takes longer, but fasting is actually the fast path to ketosis. And it's something that if a person is okay with doing it, at least a 24-hour and intermittent fast, or, a few day fast like we talked about in the last presentation. That presentation is still available. I don't remember the exact link, but you got it in emails. Just go back in your emails and figure it out. And if you want it, we can post it. So the fast path to ketosis is fasting. And a lot of the benefits that we see in fasting are because we get the body into ketosis. So what if we could get the body into ketosis without having to fast? Because quite frankly, fasting is not something everybody can do every day, right? We need to eat, we need nourishment. So what if we could do that? So some of the things that we saw, and this is a review: increased metabolic rate, increased production of antioxidants, reversing of many of the aging markers. Oops, it's not moving. Increase in the chemicals important for metabolism, keeping the metabolism humming, and for the health of the microbiome. All of this stuff happens in fasting. Increase in the Krebs cycle activity, improved protein metabolism, improved insulin sensitivity, decreased inflammation, stimulation of a process called autophagy. I'll review that later, which is the breakdown of old junky cells and cancer cells, eating that as fuel by the healthy cells, improved blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, and improved mental function and clarity of brain function. All of these come from getting into ketosis. And some of them come from, giving the liver more oomph while fasting. But a lot of this comes from ketosis. And we're going to share with you some science behind how these processes work. Okay. So what are ketones? Well, there are 3 main ketones that we know of: acetoacetate, acetone, and beta hydroxybutyrate, or beta hydroxybutyric acid. These are the 3 main ketone bodies. They don't look like very advanced looking chemicals, do they? They're pretty simple chemicals. But the beauty of them is the body can use them as fuel instead of glucose. We used to think that the brain could not use them as fuel, that the brain had to have glucose and had to have insulin to get in it. But in fact, we find that the brain can function on this with just a smaller amount of glucose. So we'll look in more detail. The one you're going to hear most about in popular press is beta hydroxybutyrate. Now, why is this suddenly the surge in the ketogenic movement, right? It's suddenly almost like a fad diet. The history of it, it started out in I think it's the 20s, where scientists were looking at it as what does it do to the brain, seeing some benefits, and then looking and saying, oh, wow, can we put kids with epilepsy who are not responding to the medications? Can we try? This might stabilize the brain. And lo and behold, it did. So it was started to be used as an approach to epilepsy, usually after the kid had been put on medication and it wasn't working. And, seems to me now that we know what we know, we should be doing it before we put them on the medications, right? But it's an amazing process. And I'm going to go into some of the brain chemistry of why that works. But now it's become popular for weight loss. And yes, it's great that it's popular for weight loss. But my concern is that it's not done properly and can create some side effects. And we'll talk about that as we go along. So basically, ketosis is the burning of fat as fuel. It's instead of burning glucose, or, we don't stop burning glucose, but instead of the primary fuel for the body being glucose, the primary fuel for the body becomes the ketone bodies. So measuring ketones. There's a lot of ways to know, are you in ketosis or not? And people ask me that. How do I know? And what about those strips? Well, you can get the keto strips, and the keto strips will tell you if there's some ketones in your urine. But there's a couple of problems with that. One, it's not really quantitative. It's just ranges, and the ranges are pretty broad. And it's not always as accurate as measuring the blood. The be all and the end all is the blood, but they'll give you a general idea. That's how people are measuring, most people. Although more and more these various monitors, like the Keto Mojo and the Precision Extra is an older one that's more expensive for the strips. So many people are now using Keto Mojo, and it measures the ketone levels. And the Keto Mojo, both of these actually measure both glucose and ketones because they go hand in hand, and we'll talk about that in a sec. There's also a breathalyzer. Now, I have a funny story about that. It's like, measure breath ketones, and it was listed on Amazon. I'm like, $10? That seems pretty inexpensive. So what the heck? I ordered it. It was an alcohol breathalyzer. Somebody had written the wrong words in their ad. Still have yet to get a refund on it. They don't reply. But these run about $40 or $50. And it basically measures the ketone. See, that one says ketone right on the unit. So I'm going to order another one. And it basically measures the amount of ketone in the body. I haven't done both side by side to know if it compares favorably, but I think anytime anybody's undergoing a ketogenic diet, they need to be testing their ketones, and not just with the urine, especially if it's for solving a metabolic problem and for getting people into a good state. So this is a really cool chart on the Keto Mojo site. Just go to Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com, and look for the glucose ketone index. And it basically measures how high in ketosis you are, and it gives you a little chart to explain it. So I'd highly recommend that you go there and keep that. I actually created a little Google sheet that I can just put my glucose numbers in and I can convert it. I did that a long time ago, and now they have the thing you can do it. But mine actually stores it for me, so I get to keep it. So anyway, that's a good way to calculate it. When I do a fast, or I will generally get into the ketone range of about 7 by about the 3rd day of the fast. By the end of the first day, I'm usually at around 3 or 4. Just so you know, 0 to 0.5 is you're not in ketosis. 0.5 to 1.5 is considered a mild nutritional ketosis. 1.5 to 3 is considered a more profound, therapeutic type level, and anything over 3, usually you're only going to get there if you're fasting. So ketogenic diets will generally get you in the range up to 3, and everybody's a little different. Some people go into ketosis after 3 or 4 days. Other people, it takes like 3 or 4 weeks. So, and we'll talk about that adaptation in a bit. It's really important to be aware of that. So people are going, oh, I feel lousy. Yes, some people feel lousy first. And we have some ways that you can get around that. So we said what we were going to cover, why the diets are suddenly so popular, what ketosis is, and measuring ketones. So the next thing that we're going to cover is the benefits of ketogenic diet. And I always preface that with when done correctly. Yes, you can get the benefits when it's not done correctly, but it's short-term benefits. And then long-term, it's not going to be so good. And then the science of the metabolic improvements that occur in ketosis. There's a lot of metabolic improvements. And when we those of you who are coming to our Shine, how many here are already signed up for our Shine conference in the fall? I know a lot of you are. There's probably about 50 people so far that are signed up. And at that conference, we're going to really, go into detail. And we've brought speakers in, and I can tell you about that later. But we brought speakers in to talk about and go into the detail. So I am Lynn, yes. So what benefits does it have? It controls the blood sugar, right? So once the body is on a ketogenic diet, we'll talk about what that looks like. Once we get on a ketogenic diet, we have less sugar coming in, less glucose coming in, and the body shifts to burning ketones, to producing more ketones, and it keeps the blood sugars under control. So it's pretty phenomenal for insulin resistance and diabetes. Not type 1 necessarily, but definitely type 2. Yes. Martha signed up. Yay. Good. Jean, yes, great. I'm glad that I can't wait to meet you all in person. Can improve memory and mental clarity. And I'm going to share some of the science behind that in a moment. It reduces seizures. That's how it really got started. It can help with gut inflammation and irritability. It helps to reduce inflammation and the irritability, like in IBS. It increases mental clarity, which is really cool. Reduces appetite. It's really interesting that when you're in ketosis, you may have eaten a very small meal and you're suddenly full. And I found myself at first going, oh, well, I still want to eat more, but I'm not hungry anymore. I only ate a little bit, but I'm not hungry anymore. So for those who have to lose weight, it's definitely an excellent approach when you do it right, when you don't let yourself get out of balance. It will help to improve mitochondrial function. And what do mitochondria do? They produce energy. So when you improve mitochondrial function, not only do you have more energy to do the things you want to do, but you also have more energy for cellular function, cellular health. So that's a really important one. And it decreases the insulin production, right? And yeah, that naturally flows from decreasing blood sugar, but I wanted to state that separately because excess insulin causes damage to blood vessel linings. Excess insulin creates problems with the brain. Excess insulin can lead to Alzheimer's because the insulin degrading enzyme is the same as the amyloid plaque degrading enzyme. And we end up with more insulin resistance in the brain leading to Alzheimer's. So it increases growth hormone. Yay, growth hormone helps us burn fat and store lean. And somebody who's going to the gym and lifting weights and not getting muscle on, it could be a decrease in growth hormone. It could be also testosterone. It stimulates what's called autophagy. And autophagy is that gobbling up of old debris. And I'll show you a picture to remind you what that is if you weren't at my last one. Improves energy production by improving the mitochondria. And then there are a lot of conditions that have been studied, and there's scientific evidence that ketogenic diets help in these conditions. Epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, devastating disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autism. Autism has been shown to be helped. Depression, migraines, narcolepsy, malignancy, neurodegenerative disorders, even in trauma and ischemia. And I'll show you a couple more facts about that. And I'm going to give you the link to a really cool article, or a really good, it's really an article on Medline, and metabolic disorders. So these are really serious conditions, and a ketogenic diet can help them. Now, if you're one of my colleagues who's really into plant-based and a plant-based diet and really against keto, please stay, because I'm going to talk about the magic that happens when keto meets plant-based, and that they are not mutually exclusive, and that you can get the benefits of a ketogenic diet without having to compromise and eat animal products. I mean, if you want to, it's your prerogative, but you don't have to. All right. So what are the the science behind the brain changes? And that's, by the way, the picture of beta hydroxybutyrate, just because that's the most common one that we talk about, and the most common one that's studied in these tests. But first of all, in terms of the energy, right? Every fatty acid molecule can make 40 ATPs, and every glucose molecule can make 36. So stands to reason we're going to get more energy from burning the fat for the same volume, the same molecules. And what that does is makes the neurons more resilient in the face of metabolic demands during seizures. What does that mean? Well, during a seizure and during general brain function in the trials and tribulations of day-to-day life, we have a lot of demand on our neurons. And if we could get the neurons to be focused and making more energy per fatty acid, per glucose, they're going to have more energy and more resiliency to be able to do their function. And in seizures, they found that to be the case. It alters the brain pH, which affects neuronal excitability. We find that the overexcited neurons get people into epilepsy. They get people into ADD. So it calms down the neurons. It inhibits these ion channels and shifts amino acid metabolism in such a way that it favors the production of GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter. And a lot of folks are running around with low GABA and not a lot of calming in their nervous system. So it can do that. It increases the influx of nutrients to the brain. They've found, this whole process with ion channels and all this that I won't bore you with. But if you go to this document, drritamarie.com/ketoscience, it's actually a Medline article, but the link was so long, you're not going to remember. So if you just go to drritamarie.com/ketoscience, it'll point you in the direction of that article. It increases something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And BDNF is nourishment. It helps the brain to repair itself and prune itself. So it increases that. Ketones do. The ketones fuel the brain without insulin, without having the influx of insulin, which, affects Alzheimer's because of the myeloid plaques, et cetera. So that's a really good one. And in Alzheimer's, it's been found through that mechanism and others to reduce the amount of beta amyloid, which is the plaque that helps, that has been implicated in affecting memory in people with Alzheimer's. In Parkinson's, it's been found to rescue the substantia nigra cells. The substantia nigra is the part of the brain that produces dopamine, and that's the part of the brain that gets injured in Parkinson's. So I think about Parkinson's as it's just an extreme form of dopamine deficiency, right? We see when people have dopamine deficiency, they get depressed and they unmotivated. Parkinson's is even a further along with that. And there's a particular chemical that's been tested a lot with brain, MPP plus, methyl 4-phenylpyridinium. Poor rats, they sacrifice the rats after they inject them, but that's how they figured it out, that in Parkinson's, it can actually help from killing off these things from toxins. And they measured this particular toxin, but they're extrapolating it to be other toxins as well. And then in epilepsy, there's a bunch of mechanisms that they found. And again, you can read that article. It has so much good science in it. The GLUT1 receptors, the pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency, and in phosphofructokinase. So kids, they found that kids who had mutations, genetic mutations in these GLUT1 receptors that transport glucose across the blood-brain barrier, they suffer seizures in infancy. And when they're put on a ketogenic diet or given exogenous ketones, that it helps them, and it helps them to prevent some of the complications of that, mental retardation, seizures, etc. Kids that have pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency, that affects the ability to convert pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, which affects the glycolysis cycle, which affects the production of ATP. And then finally, this phosphofructokinase deficiency, that's a rate-limiting enzyme in the glycolysis process as well. So, and there's particular genetic disorders where kids have a deficiency of these, and they found that these kids respond really, really well to ketogenic diets in the reduction of seizures, and that these kids don't respond really, really well to anti-seizure medications. So it's a nice little ace in the hole for that. Some of the general science behind the keto diet, the effects of the keto diet. So here's the thing. It helps in malignancies, and they've studied it in a lot of different cancers, that normal tissue can adapt to using ketones. So when they're deprive them of the glucose, they can use ketones, but the malignant cells can't. So we starve away the malignant cells. Protects against trauma and ischemia. So it's actually been found that ketones are the preferred fuel in the injured brain. And so they've done studies with people with brain injury and ischemia, which is lack of blood flow to a certain area, and found that to be helpful. It calms inflammation, which can happen in the gut. It can happen in the brain. It can happen in many parts of the body. The ketones do that. There are some cardioprotective properties and increased mitochondria. We talked about that, the increased ATP production, but increased numbers of mitochondria and cardiac muscle, which makes the heart much more resilient, and it helps to protect against ischemia and all. And it reduces appetite, which keeps people from overeating, getting obese, and getting junk calories in and junk nutrients in. Improves the mitochondrial function, decreases insulin. We talked about that, increases growth hormone, and then it stimulates autophagy. And I'm going to show you a little picture of that. But before I do, I just wanted to show you, these are some of the charts from that article, and they go into details in the text of all the different diseases. Look at the diseases that have been found to be helpful, to have a ketogenic diet be helpful in, autism, depression, headaches, narcolepsy, all kinds of metabolic disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, traumatic brain injury, hypoxic ischemic brain injury. So brain injury in general, where the brain is being starved of blood, epilepsy and more. So really, really helpful. And this is the second one, was the mechanisms, like how is this happening? And it happens via direct mediation, like how the ketone bodies are affecting the brain, and the body, and the indirect via effect on neurotransmitters and neuropeptides, ion channels, etc. So you're welcome to read that article. It's a really good article, drritamarie.com/ketoscience. This is a picture I shared in my last webinar, and I wanted to just share it again because autophagy, cells get damaged. We get damaged every day, right? We're exposed to stuff. There's just metabolic damage just from the metabolic processes, the production of antioxidants. But autophagy, think of it as the body's process of recycling its damaged tissue into usable energy during times when food isn't present. And it's not so much just food isn't present, but it happens when the glucose isn't present as well, because we find that in ketogenic diets, we stimulate autophagy, not just fasting. So it's basically the debris within the cell gets surrounded by this plasma, this membrane, creates something called an autophagosome. And then this thing called a lysosome, which has got enzymes in it to gobble things up, comes in and destroys that, or eats it, uses it as fuel. So it's really a cool process. And I just wanted to review that with you. So what have we covered so far? Why ketogenic diets are popular, what ketosis is, the measurement of ketones, the benefits of ketogenic diets when done correctly. And we'll talk about the correctly in a bit, but I showed you all the benefits, all the science behind it. I gave you a reference, and I showed you what conditions ketogenic diets can be helpful in, and the science of metabolic improvements. So let's look at the dark side of keto, how the ketogenic diets create imbalance when done incorrectly, and 3 strategies to avoid those dangerous complications. So let's get started. So what's dark about keto? Well, the way most people do, I call it the butter and bacon diet, right? It's just they eat a lot of butter, they eat a lot of bacon. There's lots of oil, lots of tallow, which is animal fat, lard, some's from pigs, some's from beef. And those are inflammatory. Those create inflammatory. Excess of omega-6 overrides the omega-3, which are anti-inflammatory, to say nothing of the effects that those things, the isolated oils without the whole food, can have on the cardiovascular system and in the creation of cancer. So I think that's not a good thing. And it's interesting because there's a lot of folks talking keto these days, and I've seen a lot, and I've been on webinars and to trainings that people are saying, well, the problem is people don't do keto right. And I'm like, yes, good. And we have to do it in a more healthy way. But then as they come in, they're showing their bacon cheeseburgers. And instead of being on bread, they're on lettuce wraps, like with this little thing of vegetables on the side. I don't think that cuts it. I really don't think that cuts it. So the problem is not enough vegetables. Vegetables, we know, contain antioxidants, many that we know of, but many that we don't yet. So we just don't want to just say, oh, well, isolate those and take an antioxidant capsule and do the ketogenic diet the way most people are teaching it. That doesn't work. That doesn't work because we just don't know what all of those antioxidants are, what all of the vitamins, minerals that have not yet been discovered or isolated. So lots of vitamins, especially in the fruits, lots of minerals, especially in the veggies, and lots of antioxidants. And we need that. The diets are acid forming. So if you measure somebody's acid alkaline balance using a pH strip, you'll see whether they're in more of an acidic state or an alkaline state. Cancer grows in an acid state. Bones get healthier in an alkaline state. So we need to have the body in a slightly alkaline state. The blood pH is around 7.35 to 7.45. Anything a little above or a little bit below is deadly pretty much. And when we have these acid forming diets, body's trying to neutralize it, and it's going to break down bone to do that. And it's going to break down the bone and lead to some osteoporosis situations. And it's going to put a lot of stress on the kidney in trying to isolate it. So high protein diets, high acid forming diets are dangerous for the kidneys. It's often too high in protein. People think, oh yeah, I need animal fat to make up this ketones and get this percentage of ketones in my diet. But they're eating too much protein. They're eating too much meat. And actually, that can be counterproductive because those proteins can convert the amino acids. Isoleucine, leucine, and valine are called branched chain amino acids, and they can get converted to, guess what? Glucose. So it actually can be counterproductive. Some advocate caffeine, like go on a ketogenic diet and don't eat any food until 1 in the afternoon, but drink as much coffee as you want with butter in it. Like, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of downsides of caffeine in terms of thinning the mucous membrane in the gut and stimulating the adrenals and putting some strain on the liver and kidneys. Bone broth. A lot of people advocate just, go ketogenic diet is just like drink these bone broths all day long. But that can be problematic, especially for people who have sensitivities to histamines and FODMAPs and glycine that gets converted to oxalates. And so people with oxalate sensitivity have to be careful here. And then there's the keto flu during adaptation. And I'll share a little bit more about what that is. So here we go. So during the phase when the body's going from burning glucose, because you're eating a normal diet and plenty of glucose there, to burning fat for fuel can take weeks or months. Now, it depends on the person. For me now, I can adapt to keto. I can do it in a few hours, basically, maybe, 16, 18 hours. But many people, it takes weeks, right? And the longer you wait to get there and the more you do it, the better your body's going to be. And there's some things with fluctuating it and alternating days of keto and non-keto, et cetera, et cetera. But it can take up to weeks or months. And during that period of time, the body is burning fat, and we can burn body fat, and the body fat contains a lot of fluid. So we shed a lot of excess fluid. A lot of people have very rapid weight loss because of that fluid reduction. But what that creates is an electrolyte imbalance. That creates the body, along with the fluids, go the electrolytes, the potassium, the sodium, magnesium, etc. So when we get that electrolyte imbalance, we get problems. We could get cramping, we could get headaches, we could get insomnia, lethargy, constipation. And these are not comfortable, right? Especially the headaches, especially the muscle cramping and all that. So not everybody gets it. It depends on how easy it is for that person to adapt, but it's also dependent on their thyroid function and their liver function and their adrenal function and their kidney function. So there's ways that if you are working with somebody and they want to do this diet, and it's appropriate for them, and you can do a modified version of it, that you be careful to identify how their other functions are doing, so you don't want to get them into a keto flu. There's ways to prevent that during the adaptation. One of the ways is to take some electrolytes, like to modify. Another way is to stay really well hydrated, right? Another way is to maybe take some exogenous ketones or MCT, and we'll talk about those keto cheats in just a bit. So when should you be careful? If someone or yourself or a family member or patient is considering a ketogenic diet, well, if they have compromised kidney function, move through this slowly. But here's the thing. The way that I'm going to show you how to do it, plant-based meets keto, is going to provide enough antioxidant support and enough electrolyte support, and is not going to be so high and so acid forming that this is how you can work it, but still go slow. Extreme adrenal fatigue. Sometimes people with extreme adrenal fatigue just can't tolerate those periods without eating, or, because a lot of times with keto, we're doing intermittent fasting too, but they can't adapt real well. So we have to go slowly with them. We have to work through it and build them up slowly. People with poor thyroid function, not everybody, a lot of people with poor thyroid function do well, but some of them don't. If they start out with poor electrolyte imbalance, we've got to look at how do we supplement that and keep them there. But the people with histamine sensitivity and oxalate and glutamate sensitivity, although if you don't do the bone broth version of keto, then you should be okay. So let's talk about my main strategies that I think will counter the dark side. We want to include plenty of non-starchy vegetables. Plenty of non-starchy vegetables. What are those? Broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, kale, cucumbers, zucchini, all of those that are high water content. Right? You want to include as many as the person can tolerate. And guess what? You're testing to see. Maybe one person doesn't tolerate red bell pepper because it's too high in glucose and it doesn't get them into ketosis. So testing, but including as many non-starchy vegetables as possible. A lot of the way this is taught is that you should not have more than 5% or 10% or 10 grams of your diet as carb, right? So it's not always true, because these vegetables are high in cellulose and starch, not starch, cellulose instead of starch. And it works really well that way. So lots of non-starchy vegetables, as many as that person tolerates, and you can go slowly with that. Focus on the whole food plant-based fats and limit oil. No, we don't have to be drinking oil, tallow and lard and butter and all those things. Those are not whole foods. Neither is olive oil or coconut oil or any kind of oil. Now, there's some variations here, right? Some folks need the oils because they're so low in weight and they need to maintain their calories, but it's really working with them. So that picture shows some oils, which I say limit, and then some of the whole food plant-based fats like avocado and olives and nuts and seeds and what else? Coconut. Those things are really amazing forms of good whole food plant-based fats. And then lots of the leafy vegetables and the sprouts and zucchini and cucumbers and all that. And stay hydrated. Keep them hydrated. Yeah, the food is going to keep them hydrated, way more hydrated than they would be if they were doing a conventional keto diet, but keeping the water and the fluid intake high. And you know what? They're drinking this. Some of the people are drinking caffeine all day long, but caffeine is dehydrating. It causes us to expel fluid. So I don't think it's a good choice. And you always have to measure both their glucose and their ketones to make sure that the ratio is good. And I shared that a little bit earlier. I showed you the glucose ketone ratio. We should always be measuring both, because a lot of people are doing this keto diet, but they're not measuring and they don't even know if they're really in keto. And they don't know if they can eat more green leafy vegetables and stay in keto because somebody told them they shouldn't eat more than, iceberg lettuce, which isn't a good idea. So far we've covered the why and the what and the measuring and the benefits and the science and the dark side and the 3 strategies, which I just shared with you, right? Plenty of green leafy vegetables and low starch vegetables and whole food plant-based fats, not oils, minimum oils. It doesn't mean you have to be a fanatic and not have any, but minimum oil, especially if you're overweight, and then stay hydrated. And then, you really do need to measure. So let's look at what we can do to design a ketogenic diet for someone who it is appropriate for. And like I said earlier, it's not necessarily appropriate for everybody, and we need to be able to identify. And then how do we best determine the best diet for you, your clients, your family members? How do we look at that so that we can help you to balance your hormones and protect against the ravages of metabolic disorders and prevent chronic degenerative diseases? So let's jump into that. So when keto meets plant-based, people think of keto, they think of meat, they think of animal fat. They don't think about plant-based. So when you can take the ketogenic approach and you can do it in a way that's loaded with vegetables and loaded with things like, olives and coconut and nuts and seeds to an extent, because you have to watch some of the nuts and seeds are a little higher in carb. You have to figure out for a person what that is to get them into ketosis. And I want to say, if you are using ketogenic diet, it's therapeutically. It's never been studied for long-term use. So, a lot of folks recommend cycling. We talk about that a lot in the last seminar about cycling when it comes to fasting and intermittent fasting. So doing it right, you have to be testing. I'd say testing it in the blood. Maybe the breathalyzer thing for ketones, I haven't done it yet, but I definitely think not trusting the urine because it's just too wide a range. As many non-starchy vegetables as the body tolerates, again, emphasizing the whole food plant-based fats, but also looking at the balance between omega-6 and 3 and not looking at oils, but the balance. We can, you can drink almond milk all day and be in an inflammatory state because it gets out of balance your omega-6 and 3. Moderate amounts of germinated nuts and seeds. And I love to soak my nuts and seeds and then turn them into amazing dips. So big plate of vegetables with a nice nut and seed germinated best when you soak them and activate them, and then make these great dips or make guacamole or any number of things, olives, olive tamponade, where you blend it up. So there's a lot of things you can do that combine the veggies with the dips. And it's not just you sitting around eating salads all day. So that's the biggest objections I get. It's like, I don't want to just eat salads. I don't eat just salads. I eat amazing food. Fermented foods, really good. My lunch today was a bowl of sauerkraut with some pine nuts and hemp seeds. And what else did I put on there? I think pickled ginger and some greens, sprouts. And then I had along with that some coconut yogurt. And that's it. I was going to have olives, but I forgot to put them on my plate. And celery sticks and a dip. I have this really good Kite Hill dip that has jalapeno in it. It's a cashew or almond, I don't remember, but it's very delicious. And I had a half of that tub of that with a bunch of celery sticks. That was a lunch. It was very filling. Right? So really easy to do. If the person needs protein powder, great. Fermented foods, I think should be, I have them at every meal. I eat 2 meals a day and I try to do fermented foods at every meal, whether it's yogurt or kimchi or fermented vegetables or sauerkraut, kefir, any number of those things. Protein powders, some people have low stomach acid and they're not absorbing and they're not digesting. So they're used to maybe having a high protein diet. And that makes up the difference. So if you have a low stomach acid, not doing protein real well, you may need to have 100 grams of protein to absorb 35. And then when you drop it and you do more of this, plant kind of keto, where keto is supposed to be lower in protein, lower in carb, and higher in fat, they may not be getting enough protein. So protein powder, that was actually something I had along with, I forgot that. I've been making ice cream out of protein powder. So I have a collagen protein powder, which is not collagen. It's actually a plant-based collagen, which is just a lot of nutrients that help to support bone and collagen's formation. And I took that and put it in the blender with some frozen zucchini and blended it up, some ice cubes. And I had this frozen dessert made from protein powder. So there's a lot of fun things you can do. Coconut and MCT oil, optional. It will help to push ketosis. So I'll talk about some keto cheats in a minute. And then macro ratios would be determined by testing, but not like they'll say, oh yeah, it should be 80% fat and 5% carb and 15% protein or somewhere like that. But everybody's different. And you really, when you count the vegetable carbs as carbs, it limits the amount of vegetables you can have. And I've found that I can be in ketosis and stay in ketosis with lots of vegetables as long as I'm careful about not doing too many of the, things like carrots and beets and the high sugar ones. Those I would limit more. So there's lots of ways, and I'll show you my version of it. So some keto cheats. There's a lot more companies. Julian Bakery has the Insta Ketos. It's called Orange Burst. It doesn't taste so good, but it's caffeine free. And for me, that's really important. Some of them have caffeine in them and other additives that I don't like. You can actually put somebody on a lower fat diet, especially like say they have gallbladder issues, right? And they just can't digest all the fat, even whole food plant-based fat. Then if you give the external ketones, they can have a lower fat diet and still get into ketosis. It can achieve ketosis in 60 minutes. Does it last? Not necessarily, right? So it depends on what the person's eating. You're not going to get into ketosis by taking insta ketones and then go have a pizza and expect to stay there, right? So it's just a part of still doing that low carb approach and keeping you in ketosis. So do I recommend it for everybody? Not necessarily. I recommend it when we're doing a cleanse. I recommend it when we're trying to get somebody into ketosis and they're having a hard time. My favorite way to jump into ketosis is to do a fast, whether it be a 24-hour or 48-hour 5-day fast. It helps you get into ketosis and then you can maintain it much more easily. So it will take quicker to get in there. The recommendation for the Insta ketones is 45 minutes before a workout, and you take it with MCT, about 25 calories worth of MCT oil. MCT means medium chain triglyceride, and it's a constituent of coconut. And it's found that by even just taking MCT alone or coconut even, you can stimulate the production of ketones, mildly stimulate it, but still can stimulate it. So the combination works. There's also a version of the ketones that Designs for Health has. So check them out and you try both of them and see which one you like better if you're going to be doing this and know how it tastes if you're going to be recommending things to people. Oh, this tastes awful. This tastes good. Right. And I've done that with certain products where I go, yeah, well, you might like this one, but I personally liked this one better. Yeah. So going back to plant-based fats, I see some questions. Plant-based fats would be avocado, coconut, olives, nuts, almonds, sunflower, almonds and macadamias and pine nuts and cashews and walnuts. I love walnuts because they're a good source of omega-3. And then seeds. So you have hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. So let me share with you a little bit about my plant-based journey and how I did it to get from a plant to do a plant-powered keto. I've experimented with this for about 1.5 years now, and I pretty consistently keep myself in a state of ketosis, just depending. I started mine with a 5-day fast, and my ketones got up to 7 at the end of the fast. Once I started eating again, they dropped down, and over the course of 5 days, they dropped down into more of a maintenance level. They've gotten as low as 0.5 to 1 if I've been away and I've eaten some mango or other kinds of higher carb meals. I don't generally eat grains or starches, but I generally will do fruits, especially when I'm in a tropical place. But I'm still able to keep it to 0.1 to 1 because when I eat a higher carb food like a fruit, I'm eating it with a lot of greens, whether it be with a green smoothie or whether it be with a big salad. And that really helps me to keep things into range. I usually, my ketones usually between 1.5 and 3. When I travel, it tends to go a little bit lower. I tested it the other day. I hadn't been testing for a while, and I tested it the other day on a trip. And I tend to eat, I don't quite get as many of my good fats unless I bring them with me. So I tend to eat, I tend to eat a little bit more fruit or whatever. But when I tested it the other day, it was 0.9. So I'm still in ketosis. My blood sugar was like 82 instead of in the 70s or 60s. So, yeah. And then I use a continuous blood glucose meter, and they now have an app on the phone, so I can do it that way. And, yeah. So I like doing that, and it can give me that. I'm a little disappointed though, because they had a 10-day meter and a 14. They switched to a 14, and they phased out the 10. And the 10-day actually costs less per day than 14. I mean, it's this little patch that it really doesn't cost them any more to make it. You can see a little bit at the bottom of this picture right here. It's just this little white pat thing. It's got the electronics in it, but tell me it costs them any more to do 14-day versus 10? No, thank you. It doesn't, right? But they charge almost double for the 14-day. So it's way more per day, and it's not accurate. It calibrates itself in an hour, which is good, whereas the other is 12. But I'm very disappointed with it. So I'm going to be on the phone with them this week or next week to try to see what we can do to push some things. I've been recommending these things to everybody, but I'm not real happy with it. Anyway, I'm disappointed. There's loads of non-starchy vegetables. So quick tip for the summer: freeze zucchini. You can make some great ice creams with it using coconut or nuts or seeds or protein powder. Whole food plant-based fats: avocados, olives, coconut, nuts, and seeds, and lots of fermented foods. That's what I do. That's my typical day. And it's healthy and it's filling. And I've gotten to the point where I don't continue to lose weight. People say, oh, I'm going to keep losing weight. No, I reach my max and I go down. And I can gain weight on it if I overeat. Like anything, if you eat past the point of full, your body's saying you don't need any more. So a lot of people ask about sweets and treats, and that's what we've grown up on: cakes and ice creams and all. And there are ways to sweeten them and maintain yourself in ketosis. So stevia, sugar, alcohols I'm a little careful with because a lot of people get gut imbalances. The only one I really recommend is erythritol, but I put the others there for completeness. Mannitol and sorbitol are known to cause gut imbalance, diarrhea, etc. Xylitol for a lot of people. Do keep sugar alcohols away from pets because dogs can die from it. My son had some erythritol, xylitol sweetened gum and left it on the table, a big box of it. And his dog got into it while he was away, and they had to rush the dog, and the dog spent 3 days in the hospital, the vet, checking her liver, and she survived it. She was a young puppy, but you got to be careful with it around pets. Lohan is a Chinese herb. I love that stuff. And we basically can get it in powdered form, and it's real easy to add just a little pinch to sweeten things up. I use it in my desserts and stuff. And then inulin, Jerusalem artichoke, and chicory. Here's the thing though, a lot of the recipes and a lot of the prepared treats you're going to find are not as good as what I think they should be, like almond flour pastries, right, that are keto friendly. But you see, when you heat omega-3 and omega-6 fats, they do become oxidized. So be careful with that. You shouldn't be doing that. And that would be a rare treat. But there's a lot of ways you can make it using whole fresh foods. So I just highly recommend that. There is one treat I found that I was thrilled with. It's called Keto Cups. And it's basically like a Reese's peanut butter cup, but instead of peanut butter, it's coconut in the middle, coconut butter, and it's chocolate on the outside, and it's simply sweetened with monk fruit, also called lohan. So really, those are really good treats. So be careful. Just be discriminating and teach your people to be discriminating. There are ways you can monitor whether people are in ketosis. I just wanted to warn you that if you do organic acid tests and you look at the test, you may find the people, if you put them on a ketogenic diet, that their ketones are going to be elevated, right? Because you're wanting that, beta hydroxybutyrate to be high. So I'm going to show you the reasons. According to the organic acid test documentation, they'll tell you why. And so if you've got them on a ketogenic diet, then probably not bad, but there are other things that could cause it. So the main ketones that are measured on the OAT test, organic acid test, are beta hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetic acid. The common causes of elevated ketones are fasting. Protein malnutrition can be there. So you want to make sure that the person isn't protein malnourished. A high-fat diet, which a ketogenic diet would be, but it could be a vitamin B12 deficiency or a candida overgrowth or pulmonary infection. So if you've got this person and they're eating a normal diet and their ketones are elevated, then you want to rule out the other possible causes. But if they're on high-fat, plant-based keto diet, then it's probably fine. So no need for alarm. And I wanted to show that because some people do these tests. So the other thing that's often used with keto is time restricted eating, intermittent fasting. And so I made this chart. If you were on the other webinar, you might recognize it. But, meal one is, we call it breakfast no matter what time. Personally, I don't have it till noon, between noon and 2, sometimes 4, depending on the day. But that's my first meal, so we call it breakfast. The second meal, you can call it lunch or dinner, depending on when you have it. But basically, second meal. The third meal is optional. But honestly, we shouldn't be having more than 3 meals. I think 3 meals is going to be fine, unless there are circumstances like someone who can't eat very much, who's very underweight and malnourished. We're going to have to give them a 4th meal, right? We want to limit carbs, no breads, no pasta, and minimal on the grains and fruit. And we can use a glucose and ketone meter to determine how much of that they can get away with and still maintain a nutritional ketosis. The fats, I believe, should be whole foods and plant-based. I don't think that tallow and lard and butter and oils even are so healthy. I think that the 3 meal limit, which we talked about, and no snacking or grazing. A lot of people do eat their 2 or 3 meals, but they're eating a lot in between. Someone asked a question on another webinar. Well, what if if I'm eating within a 4-hour window, can I eat in between those meals? Like, sure. You can eat consistently for 4 straight hours and then not eat for 20 and still get good benefits. So, it's ketosis. And then no late night eating. And this is super important for maintaining you there. All right. So, this unfocused thing is huge. Kids are eating way too many carbs. Kids are eating these diets that I see parents in the airports and when we're in restaurants, they're feeding their kids garbage and they don't know. We need to educate these things. Public education is mandatory. These kids are not Ritalin deficient. They are not Ritalin deficient. Their brain is deficient of nutrients. They're not getting the B vitamins. They're not getting the right fuel. They're eating too much glucose. They're on yo-yos. So these kids can benefit from a mild ketogenic diet, but I'd be careful, and I'd really, if you don't have a lot of experience with it, I wouldn't be putting a kid on a ketogenic diet, but I would be putting them on a junk food resistant diet, negative diet, get them off the breads and the pastas and all that and help them. You can get them to eat zucchini pasta or kelp noodles or konjac noodles if they like their pasta, and you can get them to make amazing breads or even buy amazing breads that aren't full of flour. So we need to work with kids, but we need to work with the adults that are out of focus. So many people are out of focus. What they really just want is to feel good, but they need to take action. That's why they come to us, right? They need to learn how to get there so they feel good. And we need to be able to provide them with the support and the action steps that they can take and the accountability to accelerate their process, their progress towards their goals. So what's getting in the way? All of us have something that's getting in the way. If you've got a goal out there and you're sitting back here, what's in the way? What do you have to do to remove it? And for a lot of folks, it's their diet that's in the way. It's their stress exposures. And we need to just chip away at the boulder little by little to help them to be able to get past and travel towards their goal. And they just don't know what to eat. They're asking questions like, what should I eat? What should I do here? So we want they want to know more, but you need to know more, right? You need to know more about all those hormone imbalances, the interactions, receptor resistance. I mean, there's so much more that they need to know. I went back to school to learn it when I was falling apart when I was in my 20s, and I discovered that the diet I was on that I grew up on wasn't right. And then I shifted it, and I shifted my food pyramid, and I started to address all the other aspects of life, and I got my life back. I am full of energy and I love to run and swim and jump. I was actually just looking today at one of those, what do they call those races? That Spartan races. Somebody mentioned that to me. I'm like, ooh, that sounds fun. There's obstacle courses and all that kind of stuff. I thought, let's take it to the next level, right? You're never too old to do that. When my health was falling apart, I dug in and I made the changes that I needed to. And I learned how to do this, and I got spectacular results with myself. Went back to school and got spectacular results with my clients now. And we reach well over 100,000. We reached with our emails, and we are making progress, and we're reaching practitioners. And going back to what I said at the beginning, we want to change this world. And if we want to change this world, we need to dig deep, and you need to know how to do this stuff. So you need to take a deep dive into a subject I call nutritional endocrinology, but it's really the way that our environment and our food, everything that we put in, on, and around our body, how it affects us, the emotions, the thoughts, the processes, and how it affects the hormones. And if you're thinking hormones are just all about sex, you're wrong. It's not just estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. It's everything, really. There's hormones that control every function in the body. And you need to be the master of that. If you want to step into this future and you want to be one of these practitioners on the leading edge, you need to step into it. So I'd love to meet you in person at our conference. Our nutrition, we do once a year, a scientific investigation of nutritional endocrinology. And this year's topic is metabolic disorders and nutritional endocrinology for it. And how do we use intermittent fasting, nutrients, plant-centered ketogenic diets in managing metabolic disorders? So I'd love to invite you to join us September 27th to 29th. It's at a beautiful resort type location just east of the Austin airport. We have amazing food, amazing food. And you get the opportunity to spend 3 days with me and my guest speakers and learn about nutritional endocrinology and fasting and ketogenic diets and brain health. These 2 webinars have just touched the surface. As you can tell, there's so much more to learn and apply and get some practical strategies. You're going to get digital access to all the slides, charts, and handouts. So it's not just come to the event and, leave with this packet of stuff and that's it. You're going to get access to all of that stuff online. So you can print these out and you can use them with your patients and clients. We have worksheets, recipes, sample plans, testing. We have additional recorded trainings that we're going to be giving you access to, and we're going to have before and after trainings to help you actually put this into place and actually get prepared to get the most out of the conference. Networking is amazing. People have made friends and business colleagues all throughout the years as they've come. And these meals are just phenomenal. I wish I could go and have those meals made for me every day without having to make them. I mean, it's similar to what I make at home, but it's like I get to do it. I mean, 3 days of lunches and breakfasts and a reception and meet the dinner and speakers on Saturday evening. And I get to hang out with you guys. And I love it. I love to get to know you. And I can't wait to see some of you again because I saw some familiar names on the list. And I can't wait to meet the new ones. And really excited. We're going to do some food making demos so I can share with you how do you use food making demos to incorporate these in your practice. And we're also going to talk about, we have on Sunday, I think is the day we're going to do that, how do you take what you learned and turn it into a lucrative practice? How do you attract more clients? And we have somebody that's going to talk about that from her amazing experience. We had a bag filled with gifts from our amazing sponsors. They've just started to even come to my house now. It's 2 months away. So I have a feeling that my living room and entryway are going to be loaded with boxes as usual, but this is the earliest they've gotten. We've got already a couple of sponsors. They send us all kinds of really cool stuff. We make these good goodie bags and you get to walk away with all that stuff. You get to learn and meet from many of the people you've known, best-selling authors, some of the top doctors and educators in functional medicine, like Dr. Tom O'Brien, who's going to be talking about a topic called sweet thoughts when not enough or too much of a good thing fuels cognitive impairment. So brain, how does this diet fuel the brain? Mike Mutzel, he's an amazing researcher, brilliant guy. He's going to talk about exercise fasting and autophagy so you understand the science and the application of that. We're going to get Dr. Alan Hopkins, who's going to talk about advanced biomarkers and metabolism and how you can test for that and help people to see their progress, but also determine their risk. And then Dr. Anna Kabaka is going to talk about hormones, menopause, and diet. And she's been very successfully using what she calls a green keto diet to help her patients to manage their menopause. So I'm excited about that. We have a couple more people I'm speaking with, and we'll be getting them on the agenda as well. I believe that in order for you to be the best practitioner, the best ever, you need to take care of yourself. You need to have clinical mastery, and you need to have strategies that are authentic for your business and marketing. And when you come to this conference and when you have that in place, you're going to feel confident. You're going to have joy because your clients are going to be successful and they're going to be improving their lives. And that's so, so rewarding, and satisfaction about your contribution to the world, to this new paradigm, to this new healthcare system. So we are going to throw in some bonuses, which I know that are going to help you in putting this into practice. And we're going to get the bonuses sent out shortly. So we'll have the bonuses posted as soon, probably within the next few weeks. The first one is something I did back in early part of the year called the Healthy Keto Challenge. And we have videos and we have a guide and we have slides and the whole process so you can see how I did a Healthy Keto Challenge. And that's going to provide you with a couple of things. It's going to help you to see how to teach keto to people and how to do it in a healthy way. I've got recipes in there and all sorts of great things, recipe videos. But also, it's going to help you to see how you might be able to model a challenge on Facebook to generate business. We did this Healthy Keto Challenge, and then we made an offer for people to come into one of our higher end programs, and we were able to get a lot of people to sign up for that, which was really awesome because it introduced them to the concepts and then gave them the ability to come and work with us for 9 months to put this into practice, and you can model that. So the second quick action bonus is a conference we did, a Shine conference we did back in 2017, Food as Medicine. And it was an amazing conference with amazing speakers, with amazing food demos, and really incorporating herbs and foods as medicine, as healing for our clients. And normally we would sell that for $497 with all the videos and all the handouts that we gave. The handouts alone are worth that because I put, decades into preparing these handouts, and you've got them and you can start using them in your practice or modeling them in your practice. The third one is we're going to have a training, an authentic business and marketing training. It'll be a live training after Shine, so I can talk to you about how you can put this into practice. And it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to do it. And we have slides and resources for you to start growing your own practice with this. So I'm really excited about this. And I know that this is our 7th Shine event. Every year they get better and better. And we have amazing folks that come and amazing relationships that form. We have people who have gone into business with people they met there, who've become best friends with people they've gone there. We had MDs who've hired health coaches who they met there. We have an optometrist in San Antonio here in Texas who's in our nutritional endocrinology training program, and she is studying it, but she realizes she doesn't have the time with her busy optometry practice, and she really clicked with one of our people who's in the nutritional endocrinology program, and she's a health coach, and they're working together now. So it's an amazing opportunity to network and share and grow your business while you're learning some amazing stuff. So the quick action bonuses, the healthy keto, the that shouldn't say genetics. It should say food as medicine. So, and then the authentic business and marketing training. And all of those are valued at over $1,000. We're going to throw that in along with all the food, along with 3 days of training with these great speakers, and along with all of the demos and the handouts and the online versions of the handouts, the trainings before and after. So it's packed. And you might be thinking, well, I can't afford to do this, right? It's going to cost a fortune with all that's packed in there. And in reality, we're going to give it to you for just $597, which is, it basically covers our cost. And why am I doing this? Well, because number one, I love doing these events. My husband has for years said, are you sure you want to do this again? Can't we just do this training online? Wouldn't it be cheaper? No, because I want to meet you. No, because I want you to see in action how these foods work and how you feel on these foods and how you can take what we teach you and put it into your own practice. So it's just $597, and all you have to do is go to shineliveconference.com, shineliveconference.com, and somebody put it up in the chat thing so you can actually click it there. So shineliveconference.com. Join us. Get it done. These bonuses are not going to last. We usually give you 72 hours to get these bonuses, and then the bonuses go away. We will be raising the price as we get closer. Don't have an exact date, but the price has already gone up. So I want you to understand that any bonuses I add after you sign up, you will continue to get. And anybody who signed up before, those 50 or so people already signed up, you get the bonuses. So you get all the bonuses that I announced today, plus all the bonuses you got when you first signed up. So I live by this motto that I learned from one of my students, one of my patients actually, said, don't exchange what you want most for what you want in the moment. And I want that for you, right? If you want most is to create this amazing practice and be the go-to practitioner and make a lucrative living doing what you love and helping people and helping me to change this world, then do it. Just do it. Don't let your hesitations, what's holding you back. Just come join us. It'll be the best investment you ever made in your business and in your personal life. So all of this, just $597, shinelifeconference.com. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for caring about our world, about our future, about our children and grandchildren and every generation to come, and helping to create a world that we can leave as a legacy that is healthy and happy and whole. So much love, many blessings to all of you right now. So join us at shinelifeconference.com. I'm going to go ahead and share, open up my video. And then if there's questions that have come in, my team has been gathering them because the chat goes by too fast for me to see it. I just see an occasional blip. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead and do it. You're going to make some great MDs and nurses and nurse practitioners and physician's assistants and health coaches and counselors. And you're going to get some amazing tools that you can put to work right away. So I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to, there, it got dark in here. So guys, if you have questions, I'm going to go to the little document that my team put up for me. And there we go. And I'm going to see what your questions are and your comments and get to meet whoever was there. So at the beginning, these are great. Hi, Martha. I love learning from you and want to know more about keto from North Carolina. Kat from Alberta to learn more and help myself. Diane from Australia. Whoa. I want to become diabetic free, lose weight and sleep. Awesome. Keto. Kathy, I'm interested in vegan keto. I'm not a practitioner. Jim from Los Angeles, a recent vegan having trouble controlling blood sugar. And that happens a lot, Jim, when people go plant-based, is they start to include a lot of starches and that raises their sugar. And some of us have the genetics where that may not work. So you might want to look at what we talked about tonight in terms of the plant-based keto. Karen, not a practitioner from Richmond, Texas, disabled senior, trying to learn everything. Empowered, it's really great. So yes, attend all the webinars you can. It's awesome. Amy is a functional nutrition practitioner. Want good info on keto and its applications. Marcia, happy to be listening, passionate about this stuff, but not in business. George, not a practitioner, but I know people that are and want to find out more. So please send them here, send them to the Shine Live conference site, or when we post the recording to this, if you just send them to that link where you signed up for this, they'll sign up and we'll automatically send them the recording as soon as it's ready. Stephen from Illinois, interested in keto for diabetes. It's a great option for diabetes. Chris, love more reactive hypoglycemia. Yep, you're going to, because it lowers insulin levels, would work well for that. Dan, I love this comment. Genes are the blueprints, not the builder. Toxins seem to be involved in metabolic disorders, including emotional toxicity. Thank you, Dan. Beautifully stated. Genes are the blueprint, not the builder. It's the epigenetic factors, the diet, the lifestyle, the exposures, the toxins, and the emotions that make our genes express or not express. So Monique, I want to know how long one can be on keto. Some people can be on it for months or years, and you just have to see how it goes, right? You're monitoring. How are the ketones going? Sometimes people start to have their blood sugar creep up after a while on keto. So for some people, especially women, to keep the metabolic flexibility, maybe you have a 5-1-1, something like that, like 5 days of keto, 1 day of fasting, and 1 day of cheating basically. And it's not cheating where you're going to go eat M&Ms, but basically where you do a higher carb and it keeps the body guessing. Julie is a practitioner, healing and wellness self. The pros and cons of keto, safe way to do how long. Yeah, so we talked about that. From Boise, Lynn, non-practitioner, enjoy getting help. My health and family want to know how to do keto safely and effectively. I hope you've got at least a great starting point for this. And Laura, not a practitioner, but wants to know how to do keto and has hypothyroid. Is keto safe for us? I think you have to just like dip your toes in, Laura. Start by going low glycemic. Start by taking out those obvious carbs. Get a ketone meter, get a glucose meter, and just watch. I wouldn't go hardcore into, the hardcore keto 80-10-10 until you just ease into it a little at a time and make sure you tolerate it. Can kids be on keto? I would work with a health practitioner if you want to put a kid on keto. You can definitely put kids on lower glycemic diets, but just work with a health practitioner and get them monitored. Yeah. So dangerous side effects are usually coming from doing it with the butter and bacon approach, doing all those fats and the oils. So doing it the way I recommended here, which is high amount of vegetables and hydration and whole food plant-based fats, it's really hard for it to be dangerous. I mean, it's just a normal way of life. Mary Louise, I'm in the first week of a modified keto diet, heavy on greens with my small amount of protein and healthy fats. Can't seem to get further than moderate into ketosis after 7 days. So what is moderate? Do you mean, between 1.5 and 3 or between 0.5 and 1.5? And generally speaking, just getting into ketosis that way is actually where most people get. You're not going to get above 3 unless you do some fasting, unless you're an unusual rare person. So I'm glad that you're looking at this. So just work with it and find out what works for you. And it could take weeks. You're just in the first week. So yeah, first week is really early on. Will it help depression and anxiety? It's been found to. Some of those things I mentioned for the brain. And go to that article that I gave you. It's drritamarie.com/ketoscience. And there's a lot of great information there. And they did a touch on, because I mentioned how it can increase GABA production. It can be very helpful. Okay. So functional health coach, any potential downsides? We talked about them. Great, Jenny. Chris, are we going to get material from this? There's no material from our free webinars. We do this out of the goodness of our heart. It takes us a lot. It costs us a lot. If you want to get the materials, we will be happy to share it with anybody that signs up for Shine. And we'll be able to do that. Or if you're in our nutritional endocrinology program or you're in any of our other programs. Can someone with type 1 diabetes reverse it? Is it possible for somebody hooked on sugar to do this? Hooked on sugar is your choice. So every choice matters. If you make something else more important than satisfying a sugar craving, then you're going to do something else instead of satisfying the sugar craving. As far as type 1 diabetes reversed, I don't know that it can be completely reversed, but it can certainly be brought under better control. I've worked with people who are on like 30 units of insulin and gotten them down to 5. The same kind of approach that works for type 2 diabetics works for type 1 diabetics, reducing their amount of insulin required. But it depends on the pancreas and how far along it is. And, I don't know that it can. I know of some people who have claimed to reverse type 1 diabetes, but I can't validate that. It depends. But if you're hooked on sugar and you have type 1 diabetes, you have a death wish. I'm just going to say, if you are a type 1 diabetic and you're eating sugar, you have a death wish and you need to change that. You need to figure out what's more important to you than that sugar and get on it. Chris, the brain does need glucose, but when in ketosis, it just needs less. Yeah, it needs less. Yeah, and we don't need as much. Well, your glucose never goes down to 0. The lowest my glucose ever went was 35, I think, when I was on a 7 in ketones. But generally speaking, people are doing a ketogenic diet. They're maintaining their ketones in like the 60s or 70s. And then the ketones are up higher. So it's not, you're not completely starving of glucose. You're just teaching the body that we don't have enough glucose to go around. So we have to learn to do ketones and fats, burn fats. Insulin resistance of the brain does not allow glucose into the brain. Is that accurate? It allows glucose across the blood-brain barrier, but it doesn't let it into the cells of the brain. So there's 3 areas that have been shown to develop insulin resistance: the hippocampus, the brain stem, and the cortex, the parental cortex. So we have to be, we have to really watch that. And Alzheimer's comes from insulin resistance of the brain. It's been really clear with that. What percentage of fat would you recommend for somebody with cancer, multiple myeloma? It's the same as anyone else, and you have to figure that out for yourself, right? You have to just monitor it. That 80%, I think that's just somebody made it up. Like, not everybody's the same, and I certainly don't eat 80% of my diet of fat. I don't even calculate percentages. I eat a meal, and I eat to being satiated, and if my meal is just a salad with no fat, I'm going to be hungry a little while later. You know what I mean? I know that I need, an avocado. I need some nuts and seeds, and you're going to figure it out for yourself. Robert, been following a keto diet for 6 weeks. Great. It tested my urine and the strips, and initially they were high, but gradually got less and less. Now the strips barely changed color. And he thought, I've lost 16 pounds in 3 inches. Great. My issue is that I feel like I'm out of ketosis. I would recommend that you get a blood ketone meter. Keto Mojo is a really good one. Jessica, are exogenous ketones helpful or a waste of money? I did talk about that. So I think that they're not for everybody. I think they're for people who do have difficulties getting in and who don't handle higher amounts of fat. Like some people with gallbladder and liver issues that can't handle higher amounts of fat. You can actually tone down the amount of fat that you need to stay in ketosis. When and where is the Shine Conference? The Shine Conference is in Austin, Texas, in a place called Lost Pines Hyatt Resort. And it's a beautiful location, and it's at the end of September 27th to 28th. And we're going to go through what I explained here today. We have education, we have speakers, we have meals, we have raffles and goodie bags because we try to make it fun. We have self-care breaks, and you're going to walk away full. Your heart's going to be full and your head's going to be full. What would be the downsides with thyroid conditions? It's possible that you would increase reverse T3 and decrease free T3. So you just have to be monitoring. It doesn't mean you can't do it, and it depends on what the situation is. If it's autoimmune, oftentimes it's very helpful. So it just depends, and it's a matter of just monitoring, keeping on top of it. If someone has gout in the past, won't that make it flare up? Well, if you do the bacon and butter keto diet with burgers and bacon and all that kind of stuff, yeah, that will make gout flare up big time. But if you eat a lot of green leafy vegetables and some whole food plant-based fats, I don't see how that's going to make gout flare up at all. What about the sodium in olives? Body needs sodium. So you've got to, of course, you look at the ups and the downs. If you want to calculate how much is there and keep yourself within a healthy range, that would be very helpful. Do you consider it absolutely necessary getting someone into ketosis to help with insulin resistance? No, I don't find that it's absolutely necessary. I find that it speeds up the process, but it's absolutely not 100% necessary now. This is Chris. I found myself just getting rid of all the sugars and exercise. It did the trick. Many people don't want to measure. That does the trick for some people, but if you're not measuring, you don't know. And if your doctor's just looking at your fasting glucose and saying, hey, you're great, you're fine, you're missing the boat. Measuring your own and seeing how your body responds to food is super important. And if you don't, there's certain tests, and we'll go through that at Shine, like what you should be getting the doctor to order, or you can order yourself through these direct access labs. Kitty, what about carb cycling with apples, quinoa, healthy carbs? It depends. See how it goes for you. Right? I mean, if you are carb cycling and one day a week you're doing carbs, and then the other days you're doing keto or you're doing some fasting and intermittent fasting, it's really a matter of finding what works. And the way that you find what works is by testing and seeing how you feel, but also how the numbers look. Karen, it's all so confusing. I don't know where to start. Start by having a huge plate of vegetables, salad, and throw some whole food plant-based fat on it, and start there. And get rid of the breads and the pastas. That's where I would start. The flour products. Start there. Mary, is a Shine conference available online for those who can't fly in? Right now, we don't know if that's going to be available. We're in the process of evaluating that, but not. We can't guarantee it right now. If we do, it'll be as we get closer, we'll determine if we can swing it. Celia, how often are the feast days? The feast days are, it's going to be different from person to person. You can do one feast day a week. You can do 2 feast days a week. Now, feast days don't mean that you're eating double your amount of normal calories or crap food. It just means that you're eating maybe a little bit more, like somebody earlier said, like quinoa and apples and things like that, or more calories than usual or more protein than usual. That would be the feast days. Kat, do you need to fast first or can you get into ketosis from eating whole foods? Yeah, you can get into ketosis from eating whole foods. In fact, most people don't fast. It just speeds it up if you do fast. Anne-Marie, how to start with green keto when you have Parkinson's? Well, I've explained it. So we'll have a replay if you want to go back and re-listen. And I just mentioned it to someone here. Just start by getting rid of the processed foods, the sugars and the flour and the pasta and the breads, and start by having a lot of vegetables and whole food plant-based fats. Chris, I would like to know how the cell membranes get impaired by consuming too much fat, if they already are, and that's why people are not doing well in ketosis. Okay, Chris, so I'd like to know more about who's not doing well in ketosis. People who are doing the typical ketosis are eating way more animal fat than they should. They're eating more oil than they should. They're not eating whole food plant-based fats. Cell membranes get damaged by oxidized fats, by hydrogenated fats, by fats that have been heated and ruined, and they basically cause free radical damage. They also get damaged from toxins. So when people are eating not organic food, GMOs and toxin infested stuff and breathing toxins. So there's a lot of things that do that. Yeah. And if somebody has a problem with their liver or gallbladder, they may have trouble and they may have to just ease into it. And again, if you start with whole food plant-based fats and not an 80% fat diet, which is, oil and butter and bacon, it can be good. Can somebody do keto if they have no body fat? You're going to have to make sure that you're eating it from the outside, and it depends on what their desires are and their goals. So the cautions also are people who are very underweight. You got to be careful and, just monitor to see if it's going to be good for them. It may not be. What diet for rheumatoid arthritis is fasting good for someone who's thin? If somebody's just a little bit underweight, like their normal weight, fasting can be fine. I talked about that in our last webinar. Fasting can be fine that way. But if someone is unhealthy and emaciated, no, we should not be doing fasting. No. Diet for rheumatoid arthritis is a whole food plant-based diet without all the garbage. Organic foods, eliminate the pesticides, eliminate the processed foods, no sugars, whole foods, real foods. Okay. And it's an inflammatory condition. So adding things like anti-inflammatory diet, an alkaline forming diet, things like turmeric and ginger and fermented foods and all that. What about the sodium in sauerkraut? I heard it's a good idea to rotate brands to get various probiotics, but some have very high sodium. So skip the ones. I don't do ones that have high sodium. I don't do ones. You don't have to put sodium in at all. Make your own. It's such a simple process. We have lots of videos in our Vital community. If you're not in there, certainly join as a premium member. You'll get a whole year's worth. And it's just, you don't need sodium in there. So just choose your brands carefully. Mary, how do you feel about women on keto the week before a cycle? Do you think they should up carbs and add more progesterone supporting foods? Yeah. The week before cycle is probably, I talked about this last week when we talked about the considerations for fasting and intermittent fasting in women. So before their cycle, the nutrient needs go up. And I think that that's a good time to cycle in a little bit more of the whole food, carb-rich foods. So yams and squashes and apples and things like that. And some of the seeds that are progesterone supporting. What are whole food plant-based fats besides olives and avocado? Coconut, almonds, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, all the seeds and the nuts as well. Kitty, I did 6 weeks of plant-heavy organic keto diet and didn't lose any weight. Any idea why? The urine strip showed continuous ketosis. Well, first of all, I don't know that the urine strips are that accurate. And second of all, there's no way for me to answer that question because I don't know you. I'd have to see a diet diary. I'd have to see a stress level diary. Probably some reason in there, something in there that you could be sensitive to, have an allergy reaction to. It could be something in your environment and something in your stress level. Okay. Looks like, how do you make sauerkraut without sodium? You just take cabbage and you smash it down, or any vegetables. You smash it down and you put it in a crock to ferment. Most recipes don't have it. Just look up on you can look up on Google, sauerkraut recipe without sodium. It's easy. I make it all the time. So Terry Ann, looking forward to learning what I can about plant-based keto. I have type 1 diabetes and hypothyroid. Oh, so this is more comments. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Last A1C was 12. You got to do something. You got to do something quickly. So our sweet spot solution would be amazing for you. And coming to the conference could be so you get to actually see how to eat. And April wants to learn the benefits and the risks, which we explored. Christine said her husband and I are exploring a keto diet. That's great. Make sure that you take what I talked about to heart. Carol in Alabama, searching for the best diet smoothies for me, reversing diabetes, healthy gut. You know, we, on our Sweet Spot program, when people follow it and do a metabolic reset with us, diabetics reverse their diabetes within weeks, literally weeks or a month. It really is, you've got to figure it out for yourself. But if you've got type 2 diabetes and a gut problem, you probably want to avoid putting all the bananas and mangoes and all the sweet fruits in your smoothies. In fact, you probably want to learn to make savory smoothies. We'll show you that at the conference. I want to just say the conference, the Shine Conference, shineliveconference.com. I highly recommend that you consider joining us there. You are going to get, if you really are serious about helping yourself and helping your clients, this is the place to come. I'm really excited that we're going to be doing it. Yay, Nancy, Finger Lakes, New York, want to learn what you have to teach me. I'm a nurse. Yay, come and join us at Shine. We'd love that. We get a lot of nurses at our events and in our programs. Yay. Celia, I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to make a positive difference. Priscilla, bless you. You're speaking my thoughts. I love speaking out about this. I've gotten more and more outspoken because we do need to speak up to make change. Yes. From Wisconsin, wanting to know the truth about keto, Gloria. Hopefully you've learned a lot tonight. Ariane, ready, and I would love to hear any input on vegan keto. If I have it, I just shared my whole plan that I use for myself. Anne-Marie from the Netherlands. Oh my God, it's super late. More about diet for Parkinson's. So we did talk about Parkinson's and the effects on the substantia nigra and how the ketones can support that. Michael or Michelle, it looks like Michael with an E on the end. Hello from Toronto. I recently graduated from a homeopathic school. Great. I have a relative who was pre-diabetic until he lost weight, so I'm personally interested in the information for my family and future clients. Yippee. You can make such a difference. You can make such a difference. In our insulin resistance practitioner training, we go through so much of this. And by the way, if you join our insulin resistance practitioner training, you get a free ticket to Shine. So that's a good way to do it as well. But a bunch of you have, I know. Some critics of the alkalizing diet say the body regulates pH, and it's nonsense. Yeah, well, it does. It regulates blood pH. Absolutely. We do not go off of 3.5 to 4.5 unless we're critically ill, but it does it at the expense of everything else. So if we're eating and stressing in a way that creates an alkaline acid residue, the body tries to neutralize it to keep the blood pure, and it does so by pulling from tissues. So I disagree. Acquiring a mentor for ketosis is wisdom. Totally. John Robbins said erythritol is to be avoided in his latest book, Food Revolution. Also, that was Ocean Robbins, but yeah, I've not seen any evidence that erythritol should be avoided at all costs, but it's not one of my favorites and I don't really use it. I use Lohan and stevia when I want to sweeten something. What about roasting seeds? Do they oxidize? Yes, indeed, especially the omega-3 ones, the high omega-3 ones. So I don't do it. I mean, occasionally we might slightly toast it, or if I'm in a restaurant and that's what they have on a salad, I'll do it. But No mention on starchy vegetables, sweet potatoes, celery root, kohlrabi, and even carrots and beetroots and pumpkin. All healthy vegetables, but no mention. All right. So yeah, I didn't mention them much. I did mention that if you are going to go and do some of your cheat days, so things like the yam, sweet potatoes can be used. Celery root isn't as high in starch, and kohlrabi not either. Kohlrabi is more kind of moderate, and so you moderate that. I've eaten a bunch of kohlrabi where I cut it up and use it as a dipping stick, and it hasn't raised my blood sugar or lowered my ketones. Beet, I find that beet is fine, and beet and carrots, and I haven't tried pumpkin shredded raw and put on salad. Does not hurt, does not raise my sugar or lower my ketones. But if I eat too much of it cooked, it can. So you're going to play with it. That's why, for each person, it's so important to be testing, because one person's poison is another person's pleasure, So we need to really look at this. Mary says too much protein increases blood sugar is not too well documented. No, those you doing keto right are reporting this in their community. Absolutely. Yeah. Too much protein is what people are talking about. Purslane is a super high in omega-3. Yes, it is. It's a great wild edible. Joanna, if someone shows signs of poor digestion, floating stool, is keto a bad idea? You want to go with caution there. Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, I would be strengthened in the liver gallbladder complex first, looking at, cholagogues and why is it? Why are they not digesting their fat? Are they not making enough bile? Are they not making enough lipase from the pancreas? So supporting digestion with some herbs that support the liver and move the thing. Bitters is a really good one for helping to move some of that. How do we get rid of pigmentation and black patches on face? Again, here's the thing. I don't subscribe to this for that approach. I can't tell anybody how to get rid of anything that they have, but pigmentation and black patches. Why? Why do you have black patches, right? Why do you have that pigmentation? What's the imbalance that's causing this manifestation in your body? And it takes more, I'm not a magician. And I also don't subscribe to just answering a question about a symptom without more of a background. And you shouldn't either if you're a practitioner. Candace says, I enjoyed your lecture. Appreciate your research. You each combine Joel Fuhrman and Jason Fung's principles, my favorite sources, role models. Your description of autophagy is clarification itself. Yeah, it is kind of like that. You're right. Jason Fung goes into the science behind it. Fuhrman is more plant-based and into a lot of the plants. And that's what the problem I have with a lot of people who are writing about ketogenesis and, intermittent fasting and all. They're not paying as much attention to the food as they should. And that's what we're going to do at Shine, is really give you practical strategies for helping people create it. I mean, there's just so much I could do in 90 minutes. And by the way, I finished it exactly 90 minutes, the presentation part. And for me, that's short. I'm going to be talking to you for 3 days with the exception of the 5 speakers or so that are going to get a little time. And then I'll get to really explore and answer your questions and show you examples and get to eat some food. Valerie, yay, you're in. I can't wait. I'm so glad you're coming. Yay. So anything else before we go? I'm going to look to see if there's anything else in the chat. And thank you guys so much for being here. It's been 2 hours, so we're going to get going. Yeah. All right. So go to shinelifeconference.com. Like I said, those 3 extra bonuses will be good for 72 hours. And they're amazing bonuses. And I'll send you a link later, probably tomorrow, by the time we get this edited and put together. It's late and we want to honor our systems and go to sleep on time. So we'll get that out and we'll remind you of what the bonuses are. And you'll have, what's today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll give you till Sunday night to get those, the bonuses. So, and if you have to go check with your travel agent or check with your frequent flyer miles or, check with your schedule and all, please do that. And I look forward to having you with us. So good night, everybody. Bye-bye.